Yes, what's your question?
我还是刚才问题，如果我们禅修的话，哪一个比较 make sense？ 没有，现在就不录嘛，还没录嘛，还没开始。
We start now the class. Okay.
那我等一下晚一点再问。那我晚一点再问。
Okay. Okay. Let's resume the class and still we're discussing the foundation of Buddhism on chapter 9, the Mahayana, and then we come to the page 240, the last paragraph. Yeah, the term view.
The term view drishti becomes crucial for the perfection of wisdom and Nagarjuna. The Nikayas and Agamas distinguished between wrong view, for example, that our actions have no results, that the self exists, and right views, for example, the actions do have results and that all things are not self, and recommend the latter. At the same time, these early Buddhist texts stress that the Arhat transcends and is free of all views and opinions. What the perfection of wisdom and Nagarjuna are concerned to articulate is that there is a level at which views in general, even right ones, should be seen as a form of mental rigidity, a form of opinionatedness, that is, we become attached to our right understanding. Thus, the awakened mind is free of all views, even right views. It simply sees that dharmas are empty. It simply sees the way things are. The unawakened mind grasps at and fixes upon particular conceptual understandings or verbal expressions. This does not mean that right views are somehow wrong, only that theoretical understanding should not be confused with real seeing. Right views and opinions are ultimately merely devices to bring about perfect understanding itself. The theory is for the sake of understanding. That is, a Buddha cannot strictly be said to hold a view, opinion, or believe that all dharmas are empty. Strictly speaking, he does not hold any view or opinions. He simply sees the way things are. That is, the mind that sees emptiness, as opposed to the mind that merely has a theoretical grasp, is free of any tendency to impose some sort of conceptual construct on the way things are. On the other hand, although we may be convinced Nagarjuna's argument and form the view that it is certainly true that all things are empty of inherent existence, nothing actually changes for us, and our minds continue to grasp at objects of experience, whether physical or emotional, as if they were so many possessions to have or to reject.
Okay, good. And next one?
Like the Prajna Paramita in general, Nagarjuna's analyst has often been presented in modern scholarly discussions as subverting the whole Abhidharma enterprise. This is to simplify Nagarjuna to the point of distortion. Nagarjuna's discussion is couched in Abhidharma technical terminology and assumes a thorough understanding of Abhidharma principles of analysts. Nagarjuna is not attempting to show that Abhidharma is somehow wrong, just as he is not attempting to show that the Four Noble Truths or any of the other categories of Buddhist teaching are wrong. Rather, Nagarjuna is concerned with a particular Abhidharma issue, namely the ontology of a Dharma. How is one to define what a Dharma is? What he wants to point out by appeal to fundamental principles that all Buddhist thought takes for granted is that a Dharma certainly cannot be defined as that which possesses its own inherent existence, as opposed to the conventional existence of the self, for example. In account of reality in terms of ultimately real, self-existent dharma cannot have the status of ultimate truths, but only conventional truths. In as such as it presents dharmas as representing the ultimate divisions in the analysis of experiences, beyond which one cannot go. Old Abhidharma tended to define dharmas as those things which exist in themselves. Nagarjuna's point is that, on Buddhist principles, such ultimate divisions of analysis are always arbitrary and cannot be taken as referring to ultimate realities in themselves. Although he is not explicit in presenting his critique of dharmas as self-existence, he seems to have in mind particularly the kind of ontology of a dharma we know from the works of the Sravastivada Vibhasika Abhidharma. This lays great stress on dharmas as the ultimate substantial bites of mentality or materiality, out of which the world as a whole is constructed. For Nagarjuna, an account of the world in Abhidharma terms is perfectly legitimate, as long as we do not view it as an exact and final description of how things are. Like the Buddha's teachings generally, Abhidharma must ultimately be seen as conventional, taught for the purpose of abandoning of greed, hatred, and delusion.
Okay. Wow, it's a little bit difficult. All right, why don't we just read the next paragraph as well?
The perfection of wisdom literature is Mahayana's insofar as it privileges to the path of the Bodhisattva. Likewise, on the evidence of other writings which are attributed to him, the author of the Muda Madhyamaka Karika seems to have been a follower of the Mahayana. But if Nagarjuna is a Mahayanist, this fact is entirely incidental to the philosophy of Madhyamaka Karika. In seeking to establish his understanding of emptiness, he appeals not to the authority of the perfection of wisdom sutras, but to that of the discourse of the Buddha on dependent arising preserved in the ancient Samyutta division of the canon. In fact, neither the early Perfection of Wisdom Sutra nor Nagarjuna seem to present their understanding of emptiness as a teaching peculiar to the Mahayana. That is, the understanding of emptiness of all Dharma is not seen as exclusive to Bodhisattva and Buddhas, but as the wisdom common to Sravakas, Pratyeka Buddhas, and Buddhas. Certainly, this is how Chandrakirti, Nagarjuna's 7th century commentator, understood the matter. Thus, for the perfection of wisdom and for Nagarjuna, the emptiness of Dharma, Dharma Shunyata, is not a further teaching, but something required by the logic of the emptiness of person, Pukkala Sunyata. Self, Atma, and inherent existence, Swabhava, are equivalent. Only the scale is different. The doctrine that there is no substantial self underlying person, Pukkala Ratmya. Pukkala Ratmya entails the doctrine that there is no substantial self underlying Dharma, Dharma Naratmya. Just as there is no ultimate unchanging thing behind the label person or self, so there is no ultimate unchanging thing behind the label of greed, hatred, or ignorance, behind the labels of non-attachment, loving-kindness, and wisdom. And this is what Arhats and Buddhas have always seen. Some Mahayana writers, however, did not want to claim the understanding of the emptiness of Dharma as a preserve of the Bodhisattva. Arhats understand the emptiness of a person and thereby remove the obstacle that consists in the defilement, klesa avaratna. But only the Buddhas understand the emptiness of dharmas and remove all the obstacles to full knowledge, avaratna, Thus,
Not avarana. Avarana.
Avarana. Avarana. Thus, although they abandon the defilement, arhats are still subject to subtle traces left by the defilement klesha
Vasana.
klesha vasana, which can cause, for example, an arhat to skip like a monkey, echoing a previous life.
Shall we have a little pause here first, and then we go? Okay, actually, we still have only two paragraphs. Why don't we finish that? The next two paragraphs. Yeah, both.
Both the perfectional wisdom and Nagarjuna understand themselves as explicating an understanding of the Buddha's teaching as originally taught by the Buddha. And in certain respects, such a view of the matter may not be entirely unhistorical. The earliest Buddhist teaching placed great emphasis on the wisdom of the Arhat as transcending fixed views and opinions in a manner that is not dissimilar from the professional wisdom in Nagarjuna. Moreover, non-Mahayana manuals that basically subscribe to the Abhidharma outlook share in significant respects a common understanding with the perfection of wisdom and Nagarjuna on these matters. Certainly, dharmas are ultimately ungraspable and evanescent. Certainly, the Arhat's knowledge transcends all views, even right views.
Okay.
All Buddhist.
We don't need to leave it to him. Yeah.
Okay. Of all Buddhist thinkers, it is Nagarjuna who has repeatedly captured the modern imagination. Modern scholars have presented his thought as prefiguring Kant, Schabatsky.
I think it's Schabatsky. Yeah.
Okay. Wittgenstein.
Wittgenstein.
Okay. And most recent, Rorty and Derrida Huntington. Other scholars, such as Robinson and Hayes, have suggested that Nagarjuna's arguments employ a kind of logical sleight of hand and the impresses are simply logically broad. Hayes has also questioned his influence on subsequent Indian Buddhist thought, yet he remains a towering and legendary figure for later Chinese and especially Tibetan Buddhist thought.
Okay. Right. Okay. Any comment? Any adding or whatever?
Earlier you mentioned that the special emphasis of the Madhyamaka is on drishti rather than kilesa.
Yeah.
Can you explain a little bit more?
Well, I mean, I think that actually even explained in the Tibetan tradition, even some of the Chinese master in old day that because we certainly understand that, we certainly know that, for example, when you look at the dependent arising, right? So, and they stress on, if you ignorance, avijja, it's become vijja, then everything will be, will be clear, or every link will be, cut it down. So, and that's why they do not, when you look at these Madhyamaka system, so they always not good, they are not addressing about the defilements thing to you. They're always talking how you must have the right view. Mm-hmm. But of course the right view itself, they don't use the term right view, mean the view itself is problematic. Mm-hmm. So, and in order to have the correct view, of course, not correct view, only when you can understand emptiness, then the correct view comes along, right? Yeah, that correct view, you could identical almost as a vijja. That means the mean ma. So, So, and you see, it's unlike like the Pali or unlike these Abhidhamma, even in Saravak, still other school, we're trying to explain about the karma, how the karma create the defilements, how one can cut off the defilements, especially in the Saravak, still other school. And when you again becoming the saint in the first sainthood, what kind of defilement you cut off, how that been done. And that was not really, looks like if you learn the Madhyamaka school, that's not their concern. So, and they think that the direct way to solve is that you change your view. Or basically mean that have a better view or the correct view. Then how the defilements are being cut off and how the defilements comes along. Yeah, right. I'm sure when they would say this, they definitely need to organize the whole thing. But I mean, I'm sure that most of you have read something about Madhyamaka, or some of you understand the emptiness data. None of them are talk about those issues. But if you come from the different traditions, say that you learn from a Pali or the so-called the Sravaka system, you may think that the emptiness school, because it's accepted by all the Abhidhamma or even in Nikaya mostly, the realization must come to the realization of dependent origination also. So, and when the realization of dependent origin take place, it's quite a later stage. So, but from that point, this is how one way of my understanding. I don't mean, and please understand, I think they are giving one of the really crucial view or understanding. How to put it? Maybe better to say that understanding, sometimes they could understand that kind of, almost like the word dukkha, suffering. You don't say that, okay, oh, now I see the dukkha. I mean, I would definitely see the cause of the dukkha. Because the understanding the dukkha, if you really have to put it in, lay it out, if you want to lay out a map, still there are different levels of understanding the dukkha also. The same thing, the understanding of the emptiness. This is how I believe. I don't mean that all Nagarjuna or all the Madhyamika will buy what I'm saying. But I think that even though, like the essence, I shouldn't say essence because they hate this term. The thing about the dukkha, or that what we call dravya, the tea, the body of the dukkha. The body, because we understand the body is not permanent, but kind of like the body as a designate a term called body. That's why they say dravya. The body of the dukkha, how to say, can be understood in a different level. Okay, but the body of the dukkha cannot be like the dukkha is mean the sukha. Okay, the dukkha is always dukkha. Okay, like the emptiness, it's always emptiness. But I think that we have to be very careful when they say the emptiness. It's not like you realize one emptiness, you realize all the emptiness. No. So, okay, that's what I want to emphasize. Yeah. But certainly emptiness has to do in relation to the dependent origination.
So the Nagarjuna's argument is primarily deals with the issue with Sarvastivada.
Well, that's how some scholars think that, but not necessarily. I think he is much more than that. Certainly, according to the record we have, like from Tibetan sources or even from Chinese St. John Farsi sources, and so forth. So he became a monk under the Sarvastivada tradition. And in those days, if you really have become a master, there's no way you are not master in Abhidhamma as well. And also there's a lot of proof about that because he used a lot of terms. And those terms are strictly actually not in the sutra, but in the Abhidhamma too.
But this Abhidhamma is not the Theravada Abhidhamma, it's the Sarvastivada.
Yeah, even though they are not, but they still have a very similar kind of emphasis, I would say. let's say one of the things I just mentioned, they bear the similarity almost like what is meant by the ultimate truth is because that is either the Sarvastivada or the Theravada stand the same position. Yeah. Well, okay, we have a little time. I don't think we want to go to the next chapter because that's another big chapter. But what I want to say, I like to say, we can end the class a little earlier, but before that, I would say anything you can add up and say and about what you might have read something about the Nagarjuna or Tibetan understanding of Nagarjuna. All these, his text is Mula Madhyamaka Karika.
If one is to choose a book to read about Mula Madhyamaka Karika, is there any author that you would recommend?
Well, of course, the best thing is always, there are lots of English books because I have to say to do this Madhyamika research is far more than, especially influenced by the Tibetans, not only just Tibetan, but especially influenced by Tibetan, far more than any party, okay? But I usually like people when they read, unless you really cannot read that, always try to read the translation first. Like Mula Madhyamaka Karika, usually nowadays the people do translation, they have the Sanskrit comparative Sanskrit. Because sometimes not they translate wrong. The problem is that because if you don't have that background, when you read the Chinese, you take it wrong also. So read that one when people have, especially when the translation have been done with the Sanskrit comparative, and they do the comparison. And also, please after that, it's best to read the commentator, like what he mentioned, Janakviti, Buddhabharita. Buddhabharita, I don't think we have anything left. Everybody think that because his sources are gone, direct sources about that's why the Janakviti try to claim, because Janakviti is the student of Buddhabharita, and he tried to claim actually he really learned from Nagarjuna, because we all know that Buddhabharita is learned from Nagarjuna anyway. So, and you try to read that way. It will give you a more direct sense, But there are some other good book, I think, I don't remember yet, but there are some other good book you try to find the differences between the Swadantikra and this Prasangika. And those are very good approach. Otherwise, just read that. Or also Chinese, you have Chimu, which is a very interesting, the Chimu called Pingala, and in earlier time it been translated into Chinese, but interesting in Tibetan you don't have his sources. That's very unique also, and I like his work because when you read his work you can feel he's very much faithful to, this is how I feel, because I'm not doing that research, I don't write any book about that. I remember he actually have a very maybe his approach more like a Pali system understanding, dependent origination. He understands like the Dhamma, 只有故必有，此生故必生. For example, that how to say in English? When this exists, that exists, right? No, when this becoming, that becoming, and when this exists, that exists. He understands actually this happen in simultaneously. It's not in order. So it's just only when you have a wisdom, you see the arising and the ceasing are happen together. So it's not like there's a phase of changing. So I think if I was not wrong, and Chimu, he actually represent the emptiness, or because that's what you see the emptiness in some sense, in a deeper sense, it means the Nibbana, right? But as I say, it doesn't mean you see the Nibbana, mean you see everything like a dukkha. They still have different level of it. But in some sense, I think that Chimu, that Pingala have a really direct way of addressing it. So like that, those are quite amazing. And try to read those so-called old master, what they write. And find the translation first. Because Madhyamaka was in America or in the West, his philosophy, like you just say, some people agree with him, like him, some hate him, whatever. He is really one of the philosophy in that kind of emptiness concept that open up people, like shaking people's brain. But one other thing I need to say in defense of Abhidharma, it's because of people learning that, and people refuse to learn systematical thing like Abhidharma, and they thought that is invalid. That's another extreme comes along later. Yeah. Okay, and thank you for your attending the class, and I'm sure that whatever outcome in your head, or whatever ideas in your head, but you have to know one thing. Before you join in this class, lots of things, now everything come into, not come into, how to say, one piece. You you don't feel that they are awkward. Whether you totally agree or not agree is another thing, but you come to it, you know this is as become part of the Buddhist ideology, you can understand it that way. You don't against like what normal people say, oh, this is what this. No, you don't have that approach. Whether you like it, you approach, it's almost like, as I always say, look at almost like we have different races, and then you take everyone as one of the human. But it's just people have a preference or the way to understand it, blah, 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 or maybe you think there's a little bit too much, whatever, but still it's human, I like that, okay? Okay, thank you for joining the class. I will see you next time. And Jen, also thank you for your joining online. And we do the transfer merit and we will end the class. Yeah. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you. Bye.